Hello everybody, Jose Rodriguez back again. If you print on regular photo paper such as a resin coated type paper or one of the photo matte type papers for say Canon or Epson, you usually will not have any kind of issues with head strikes as long as the paper is flat and the corners are not being snagged by the bottom nozzle plate of your print head. You will get perfectly smooth results such as these. Okay, this is a print that I just made on my previous video. Now, there are some exceptions. This paper will actually not buckle in these areas that are super high density levels of ink applied to. If you have a paper that tends to buckle, that means that area will rise a tiny little bit. All it needs to do is buckle up a few thousandths of an inch and the head strike will occur. It'll just scratch that surface as the printhead is passing over it. And that can happen on this type of paper. This is a burrito coated rag base paper. But as you can see, nothing. It's perfectly smooth. It is absolutely free of any kind of buckling, even the areas that received a high density of ink. This region here, that region there, low density of ink. The foreground, high density of ink. So those areas could possibly buckle up. Now, let me tell you what that looks like. I'm going to load an image and you will see what I'm talking about. And this occurred to a viewer. And basically what he saw was these marks, these scrapes, basically like if you took a file and went over the surface of the paper itself. Hang on one second and I'll show you what I'm talking about. And there it is. Let me go ahead and increase the size a bit so you can see. Now this represents, this direction is the direction of the head travel. Okay, so this indicates this area of high density somehow buckled up slightly and it created those scratches. So these were caused, say, while the head was passing from left to right and the opposite side is from right to left, if that is the way that it was oriented. Now, as you notice, the rest of the print, no issues whatsoever. Okay, so that can happen. Now, how can you possibly solve this issue? Well, some settings in some printers allow you to actually reduce the ink density bit by bit until you still get exactly the same results, say for instance, of a standard image. In other words, you get the complete dynamic range that you should expect to have, but you're actually using less ink. And that usually occurs because you're using some other paper. You're using some other paper for which the media configuration you're choosing is actually for another paper made by Epson or Canon, not by Red River or some other manufacturer. You see, so there may be some requirements that are really not going to be met if you just simply choose the recommended paper choice they will tell you to utilize. Now, if you want to avoid this, if you see it happening, and it's very rare, it doesn't occur all the time, you're going to have to increase the gap, reduce the ink density, obviously, to a point where you still get a proper black. If it is 000, a value, you still get a black. It's just not going to be a wet looking black. And wet looking blacks will cause paper buckling on certain types of paper, usually your burrito, fiber-based or rag-based papers. Another thing you could do is increase the head to paper gap. And you can do that. There are adjustments in some of the more advanced printer drivers that will allow you to increase the gap. You cannot just increase it to whatever you wish. There are some limitations how wide a gap you can actually set, because otherwise you're going to begin to lose your image quality. Another thing you can do specifically on Canon printers is to choose prevent paper abrasion. That's usually available in your maintenance tab. And that will solve this problem. You will get results just like I just showed you. Perfectly smooth. And that's a troublesome paper. Very troublesome. That's why probably, I think that's the reason they stopped making it. It was amazing the way it looks, the way that it prints, but it has buckling problems. So on my Pro 1000, I had to set it to a standard choice of prevent paper abrasion and reduce the density of the total application of ink. I still get a complete tonal range and I get zero buckling. I tried that same paper on the 8550, head strikes galore. The 8550 using, that is a semi-gloss type surface. If I choose an Epson semi-gloss paper, it applies too much ink and it begins to buckle and the head just scratches the living daylights out of that paper. So you have to be very careful. Now it has been replaced a couple of times by various other paper mills, similar type surfaces, but really not quite as good as the original San Gabriel 1.0. I love it. I only have a bit left and I am using it specifically for the images that Harold Davies has been sending me through his travels. Amazing images. I just used one of his images in my previous video where I did an edit on Lightroom showing you how I go about editing a landscape. All right, so that is it for now. Happy printing and keep your eye open for any kind of scratches or head strikes or any kind of damage that is usually caused by the printhead coming into contact with the paper surfaces as it is attempting to print your image. Pass by pass. That is it for now. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and like. And as always, happy printing, everybody. Bye-bye.